My married life with my wife Kay had hit rock bottom. We get intimate once a month. 0, if she thought of a reason to be mad at me. When we first married, we used to do it 4 to 5 times a week. One of the reasons I started dating her, she was amazing in bed. The other reasons, she was cute, slim, fit, flexible, and loved to have sex. Now, she is not cute, not slim, not fit, not flexible, just like Borat's wife, well, almost like her, and seems to hate sex. Kay had 2 sisters, both younger, about 1 year apart from each other, Katie the middle sister and Kathy the youngest. All 3 sisters were known to be the hottest bedroom fun any guy could ask for. And I was hoping to be the lucky guy Kay chose to settle down with. We married 12 years ago, after I got her pregnant in college. We were both seniors in college, in love, and had been talking about getting married anyways. Sally was born 5 months after the wedding, and a year and a half later, Kevin was born. Both incredibly spoiled by their mom's sisters, and my wife's parents. I despised her parents, who thought I was beneath Kay, since I could not buy her all the luxuries she deserved. Neither of them ever worked, except for some charities. They received all their money through inheritances. A few years ago, they sold the last property they inherited, so I knew they were getting near to the end of their cash flow. This was not known by anyone but me. I had checked all the property records many years ago. Both of Kay's sisters had 2 kids each. Katie is married to Ron, who runs 5 dry cleaning stores for his dad. Kathy is married to Mark. Mark inherited his house and some money when his grandparents passed away. Mark owns his own marketing firm, but I have never seen him working or know where his office is. Both sisters, like Kay, are very fun to be around during a party. None of them are worth anything if there is any work to be done. So, while sitting in my home office 2 years ago, pissed off that I had to take care of my needs in the shower that morning, I took a hard look at my life. Almost no sex. A shrew, lazy wife who doesn't work. 2 kids with little respect for me, and who sound just like their mother. A job I do not like because the company treats us like servants. A house near her parents, which Kay insisted on, where it snows 4 months of the year. I grew up in the South and hate the cold. A 10-year-old car which was my wife's during college, until she wrecked it, traded in my car, and bought a new one. All because I can't wait for my car to be fixed. Payments on a new car for Kay, which I am not allowed to drive. Unless I want verbal abuse and 0 sex from Kay. Payments on a house too big. I need to live near my family. Payments for a small pedigree dog that would die without its meds, because the breed is so inbred. Payments for a maid, twice a week, because my wife told me housework was making her too tired for sex, 10 years ago. The small increase in sex lasted for about 2 months, but the maid is still here. Payments for a clubhouse and spa membership, so my wife could hang out with her friends and sisters. I don't play golf and have never been to the spa. Payments weekly for new clothes and hairstyling. She has social responsibilities to look good for her friends and family. Payments for tennis lessons for both my kids and her. All 3 completely suck and never play. Both the kids would stay high 24 hours a day, if they could. Payments for 3 annual vacations every year. One in the winter with all the family, on her side, skiing. So I have to go. I don't snow ski, bad knee, and again, I hate the cold. One in the spring where we stay in a big city, which the sisters pick. So my wife and sisters can go shopping with all the kids. One in the summer, to a beach, which I am not invited to, because only my wife and her sisters need to bond and unwind. Christmas and Thanksgiving every year at one of her family members' houses. My parents are retired living in a bungalow, on a beach, in the South. Kay, their house is too small to visit. 1 wife, 2 kids, 1 father-in-law, 1 mother-in-law, 2 sisters-in-law, 2 nephews, 2 nieces, and 2 brothers-in-law, who openly mock me because I don't have any family inheritance making our lives easy. Workaholic work hours, and a wife and kids who do not appreciate the time and hard work I put in to make her and the kids' lives comfortable. Lastly, a wife who is cheating on me. That's right. Also, a cheating bitch of a woman. No, I did not accidentally or unexpectedly come across this information. A few months before I reevaluated my life, I decided to find out. Kay was too content without any sex. Either she had lost interest or was getting it somewhere else. So, I decided I needed a hobby. We live in a digital age. It is so easy to get spyware, recorders, cameras, storage, Bluetooth, wireless, and monitoring software. The first thing I did was put a recorder in my wife's car. I tied it to the car battery, so basically unlimited life. I put a wireless Bluetooth station in the garage where she parked at home. Whenever she parked in the garage, it would automatically download to my home PC. I then put cameras in every single room in the house. except the kids no way, including the back patio, the pool area, the garage, the side door, and the front porch. All immediately download to my home computer. All tiny and very discreet in clocks, smoke alarms, lamps, and lights. Using some early footage, I quickly determined my wife's phone code, which my wife determinately kept secret from me. Around 3 a.m., I opened her phone and installed monitoring software. Now I could listen to all her phone calls, both sides, and any messaging that were sent to or from the phone. I called my internet provider to get my home internet upgraded to business class. This allowed me to access my home computer from anywhere using my mobile phone. 2 weeks later, sitting in my home office, after everyone went to bed, I listened to the wife's voice recording from her car. Kay said, "Can you meet this Thursday at my place? 10 works for me. I can't wait to ride you hard." "Me too, babe. Love you." Well, to say that was a kick in the nuts would be an understatement. I immediately shut down my computer and took the dog for a walk. I was livid. I was prepared for the worst. In fact, I expected it. But actually hearing it was very painful. Anger, rage, Hulk smash. When I finally calmed down, I realized all I had was anger. But I realized I was not sad at all. It was late. I was tired. I went home and slept fitfully. I woke up the next morning and took a hard look at my life. All those one-way commitments and a cheating wife. I had to get out of this total nightmare. First, who was the guy? Second, get hard evidence. Oh wait, why was there no conversation from my wife's phone? She must have another phone. Simple enough. Search her car. I would have to wait until she went asleep. After working all day, I worked late until everyone was asleep. I spent an hour looking through her car and was starting to wonder if she might have hidden it in the house, when I found it almost by accident. I was shining a flashlight around when I saw a glint inside the main air vent in the front console. I pulled on the air vent, and it popped right off. Inside the air vent was a phone velcroed onto the back of the vent. Very sneaky. I opened the phone and tried the code from my wife's other phone. It worked. I told you she was lazy. I installed the same monitoring software, put the phone back, and replaced the vent cover. I went back to my home office and looked through the results that were coming in. Lots of texts. 2 years worth, then nothing. I assumed the phone was purchased 2 years ago. The messages had all been deleted, but were recoverable. The monitoring software had recovered the messages. Holy crap. Many of the messages were between the three sisters comparing their lovers' performances in bed. They even discussed passing around partners. So, my wife's latest target was my daughter's soccer coach. Figures. The guy is a douche and married. Katie wants the grocery boy on the football team. But Kay and Kathy scolded her that unmarried guys were off limits. Too clingy and nothing to lose. Mom would be upset if you broke the rules. Holy shit. Their mom had rules to cheat by. My wife's sister Kathy was banging a mechanic. She was the last one to get him. Seems he got all three sisters, because he has a big tool. But get this, their mom had sampled him first. I also found out that Kay had slept with Ron and Mark, but it seemed to be infrequent, looking back the 2 years. The sisters were encouraging Kay to do them again. To keep them in line? Well, what to do? I needed an exit strategy. The following week was tough, having to act like I was completely unaware. I complained about the cleanliness of the house or laundry until Kay started arguing with me. Kay put me in my place and stonewalled me in the bedroom. Poor me. I made a mental note to restart the arguments every couple of weeks and moved into the guest room. A week later, I had a plan. I wanted out. I wanted out of my job. I wanted all of the money. I wanted no alimony. I did not want my kids. She had ruined them. I wanted the in-laws to hurt, and I wanted her in severe mental anguish for as long as possible. Long-term goal. I wanted to start over. I wanted to be gone, and I wanted a chance at a real family. I realized I had been a complete idiot. Hard-working, devoted husbands were not appreciated by her or her family. Her parents, her sisters, and their husbands were toxic to any relationship. How can such complete narcissists ever appreciate anyone else? They only saw an opportunity to get what they wanted. If anything goes wrong, tell another lie, manipulate, till you get what you want. I came up with a plan. The first thing was to get the two sisters divorced and leverage on my parent-in-laws. Easy enough. When I was at Katie's for a dinner, I photographed, very closely, 1 alarm clock, 2 wall clocks, and 1 smoke detector. At Kathy's for dinner, 2 alarm clocks, 2 wall clocks, and a doorbell cover. At Mom's house for dinner, 1 alarm clock. I had replaced all the smoke detectors as a favor, anything to make Kay quit griping. In the house with newer models a year ago. The hardest part was finding an exact duplicate for the doorbell cover. The thing was old and a certain faded yellow. eBay is great. Once I had the cameras installed in each, I had a pool party and invited everyone over. When everyone was swimming, I borrowed their house keys and I installed the monitoring software on everyone's phones. From my house recordings, I knew everyone's phone lock codes. During the party, bumbling me accidentally dropped the 10-pound bag of ice onto the ground. Katie said, "Are you completely useless? Go get some more ice from the store." I apologized and left the party. On my way for ice, I stopped at Mom's house, Kathy's house, and Katie's house and made a few replacements. Dropped a wireless box in each house's attic after connecting to their wireless networks. I then stopped by a hardware store and made a copy of each house key. Picked up some ice and went home. "Kathy, took you long enough." I explained I had a flat tire and had trouble getting the tire off. No thanks or tough luck from anyone. It took Kathy only 2 days for me to get video proof. The mechanic was a beefy guy. I assumed they must be in a hurry since they left a trail of clothes from the front door. No foreplay, just strip quickly and jump onto the bed. I saw all of that, but I would have preferred watching hyenas made on National Geographic. When he was done, he laid on the bed on his back, breathing hard. Kathy rolled over and began to climb him. He pushed her away and said, "No more, I have to go before my wife gets worried." Kathy said, "Oh poo, one more time before you go." "Mechanic, she may want some loving tonight. I have to be able to perform or she will know." He got up and took a quick shower. When he came out dressed, he said, "Thanks baby, see you next week." He opened his phone on the way out the door. He put his phone code in, right in front of the camera. The next Thursday after they started, I quietly went in through the sliding back door and installed some monitoring software on his phone. His phone was in the back pocket of his pants, which were laying in the middle of the living room. And things got better. Katie was the next day, at her place. Her lover was none other than her uncle and her aunt, her dad's brother. They all three came in and got undressed. The aunt turned out to be a very beautiful woman. She was in late 50s, but I would have guessed from her body 40. Hourglass shape and a stomach she obviously worked hard to keep flat. She looked sexier next to Katie. Once again, I endured the video. Watching a croc eat a hippo baby on National Geographic is more fun. A few minutes later, she got up and took a shower. She came out fully dressed and changed all the bedding. Next was my wife in our own bedroom. My wife did our neighbor's wife, Cheryl. Our neighbor is a tall, hot redhead. She is the matronly type, but with an hourglass figure. Still hot as hell. I like my women thinner, but I have to say, she was hot as hell in action. They came into the bedroom, kissing the whole time. Well, this time I saw the whole video and enjoyed. I wonder what it would be like if Sir David Attenborough described the two ladies in action. They cuddled a short time, then Cheryl got up and took a shower, then left. My front door camera showed Cheryl walking home gingerly and definitely bow-legged. Then I got a huge surprise. Ron and Mark came into Katie's bedroom and they both got undressed. I thought, who are they going to tag team today? After what I saw, I made a mental note to never shake hands with either of them again. Then it got weirder. I watched the video from Katie's parents. I scanned quickly through most of the morning and nights in the video. Whenever I saw them in the bedroom, in any sort of undress, I jumped forward. I did not want to see either of them naked. But then I saw Katie's uncle in the video. I ran it at normal speed in a very, very, very small window. In a nutshell, Katie's uncle, with his miniature tool, screwed Katie's mom while Katie's dad sat in a chair next to the bed watching. Seems to run in the family. A few minutes later, both the men were done, but Kay's mom was far from done. She pulled out something that looked like an industrial jackhammer. She then put thing on high and went to town on it. It sounded like it could shake the siding off the house. That was much easier than I expected, but weirder. I wonder if I can get Morgan Freeman to do a monologue on these videos. Now you're saying, this was a legally obtained video? So what? I did not plan on any of this making it into court. In fact, I wanted persons seeing this to want it to stay out of court. Before I sent any of the videos, I needed to remove the video recorders. I did not want them to find any recorders and then find the central storage connected to the internet. So, I needed to remove the video cameras that captured the incriminating videos out of their respective houses. Easy enough. Another pool party and another drop bag of ice. Kay, well done numbnuts. Katie, does he have any nuts? Kathy, aren't they in your purse, Kay? This was followed by snickering from the women. Sally mumbled to the girls, Mom, why does he have to be so embarrassing all the time? Ron, don't be afraid to ask for help with something so heavy next time. Mark, we can get one of the girls to help you next time. Kevin, geez, Dad, man up. Then they all laughed at me as Karen yelled at me to go and get some more ice from the store. Katie's parents told me to hurry up, their drinks were getting warm. Typical derision from the group, but until that moment I had never had all 9 deride me at once. Now that I had my excuse to get out of the house, I retrieved the 3 alarm clocks, but installed other cameras, back with a new bag of ice in the proper amount of time. So first, I sent the videos of Kathy and the mechanic to Kathy and Mark. Then I sent the Katie with her aunt and uncle to Katie and Ron. I included a message, "You shouldn't mess with another woman's husband." Did the shit hit the fan? No. The sisters complained to the mother-in-law and she stepped in and pulled the, for the sake of children. It was only one time. It was a mistake. She never loved him. And she only loves you. The usual crap. What finally stopped any divorce was when Mom privately told each of the sons-in-law, "You have always been our favorite and we were planning on leaving all our inheritance to you and our daughter." Of course, each son-in-law thought he was the chosen one. So, I had to give a push. I sent Ron and Mark a copy of their playtime tape. This included a message that the video would come out if they were not divorced on the grounds of adultery within the year. Also, I don't want any homewrecker to stay married after what she did. For the final push, when Ron and Mark were bitching about their wives to each other, with me nearby, but no mention of the sisters cheating, I told them I thought our parent-in-laws were almost broke. I heard through the grapevine that they have a second mortgage on the house, no other properties to sell, 0 savings in the bank, and no social security, since they never held a job. I knew these things were a fact due to my hobby. That did the trick. Ron and Mark filed for divorce, on the grounds of adultery. They had the divorce papers served within a week. They used the same attorney. My mother-in-law and father-in-law were heartbroken, especially after 6 months when the divorces were final, and they found how wealthy Ron and Mark were. Seems Ron was just an employee working for Dad. Ron's dad paid up front for the house as a wedding present, for them to live in. This meant Dad's name was on the title. I guess Ron and his dad figured Ron would eventually own it anyways. After his dad passed away, Ron is the only child. Both of the cars were also company cars. Seems Ron had been lying about being the big business tycoon. He was just a manager of a few dry cleaners, working for his dad and his young stepmother. Ron's dad remarried a few years ago, after Ron's mom remarried a wealthier old man. Mark was only a little better off. He had received some inheritance and a trust fund from his grandfather. He figured both would be off limits in a divorce. Unfortunately for him, both were the household's only sources of income, so it was considered communal income during the divorce. The divorce was difficult, fighting over every little asset. So Mark and Kathy used up all their savings to pay off their lawyers. The trust fund was divided to around 1/3 for Mark and 2/3 for Kathy. It wasn't much. As for Mark's and Kathy's house, everyone knew it was his parents' originally. He had told everyone he had bought it from them when they retired and moved to warmer climate. He hadn't. His parents still owned it. My mother-in-law, father-in-law, and Kathy all pleaded with Mark's parents to let their grandkids continue to live in the big house for free. Seems Mark's parents had basically disowned him when they retired. Something about money. Just before Mark's wedding, Mark had threatened to move into the town where they had retired. So, Mark's dad had made a deal with Mark when he got married. He could live in the house for free on the condition that he stayed out of their lives forever. After Kathy's last conversations with Mark's parents, she had Mark's dad actually considering letting them stay. But my big mouth mother-in-law's conversation fixed that. After a lengthy pleading conversation, from one grandparent to another grandparent, my mother-in-law threatened to personally sue him if he did not let their grandchildren stay in the house for free. Mark's dad immediately told her she was free to buy the house and gift it to their daughter, then he hung up. The house went up for sale 2 days later. Mark didn't own a marketing firm. The only marketing firm he worked for had fired him for sexual harassment, his first job out of college. A week later, my mother-in-law got a night in jail and a restraining order for attacking the mechanic's wife. She tried to attack the poor woman and threatened to kill her for what she had done. Seems my mother-in-law was still convinced the mechanic's wife was behind the videos sent to her. My mother-in-law slapped the mechanic's wife in a coffee shop, hard. Bad move. With her 2 babies in a stroller next to her, the mechanic's wife punched my mother-in-law in the nose, hard. My mother-in-law ended up with 2 very black eyes and a very broken nose. You should have seen the smile on the mechanic's wife's face. She had that smile on her the whole time she spoke to the police, when they handcuffed my mother-in-law, and when she peered in at my mother-in-law sitting in the back of the police cruiser. The coffee shop cameras caught the whole incident. So, did the hidden camera I had put into my mother-in-law's car. I swear the mechanic's wife could be in the MMA. While they calmed down and were waiting for the police, the mechanic's wife asked my mother-in-law why she thought she sent the videos. With her broken nose, my mother-in-law answered the mechanic's wife with a sneering look and a vindictive tone. He said you weren't good in bed. How did you think you would get to keep that big meat to yourself when we were more than happy to let him have any position he wanted? It felt I should help the mechanic's wife with a little info. I sent her the video with Kathy, many trophy pics he had on his phone, and all the cheating text he had on his phone. The mechanic was divorced within 3 months. Funny enough, during one of the family get-togethers, Ron and Mark were both drunk and complaining about their divorces to me. Mark said, "I only got married and had kids because I thought Kathy's parents were rich and my dad would undisown me. Instead, now I have almost nothing. I lost all of my savings and most of my trust fund goes to my stupid ex-wife. My 2 sisters are going to get everything from my dad." Ron, you think that's bad? I married that bitch so my dad would give me the dry cleaning businesses. Instead, he made me a store manager, saying once I learned the ropes, he would put me over all the stores. It never happened. He blamed me for causing the store I ran to lose money. It's not my fault that the store he gave me had such a holies for customers. Worse yet, my dad's new wife is having a baby. I don't think he is going to leave me anything when he dies. All in all, it seems the sisters were so busy trying to find a trust fund husband, they neglected to verify they were actually going to get much inheritance. Seems the gold diggers got fooled by the wealthy posers. Not all that shines is gold. The best part, both daughters and their kids moved back in with their parents. And they hated each other. From the mother-in-law, God, do we have to put up with those 2 bitches and their fat, stupid, loser kids? Which was funny, because both sisters complained to each other about who was going to be worse to live with, the old skank, or the old little Moby Dick. So, with the sisters divorced, my little hobby was paying off. Life was a little better around the house. Over the phone to her sisters, my wife actually complimented me on being the big breadwinner, out of the 3 husbands. Of course, it lasted for about 5 seconds before they said all 3 of us were losers. I just happened to be the least loser of the 3, right now. They all thought that was hilarious. I did get a reprieve from my mother-in-law while she was recovering from reconstructive surgery on her nose. When it finally healed, her nose was noticeably bigger and slightly crooked. My boss was the owner of the company I worked for. Our software managed inventory, part builds, bill of materials, and engineering into one seamless product. I know, because I had coded all the big parts. Did I mention I hated my boss, John? I had been working for him for years. When we first started, we were pretty good friends. Once the company grew and started making more money, he had very little time for me or my opinions. He became a ballbuster, only interested in squeezing more money from the business. He was a royal self-centered jackass. Our yearly bonuses, which had started out around $16,000 per employee, were now less than $2,000. Between inflation, shitty raises, shrinking bonuses, and rising healthcare, the longer I worked there, the less I made. My little surveillance hobby was working very well. So, I decided to expand into my boss's office, his home, and his office secretary's apartment. His secretary's name was Sasha. Word around the office was that they were banging after hours. I thought it would be more difficult to gain access to their homes, but it wasn't. I was able to get a copy of Sasha's apartment key made when she went into the main conference room for the weekly management meeting. I also got John's house key. She had one on her key ring, labeled John. Once I had the recorders and monitoring software installed in the office PCs, I was able to determine that Sasha lived alone. Sasha's apartment was easy. A few minutes in, a few pics, a few eBay purchases, and she was set up with video and voice in her apartment. With the video watching her workspace, I knew her and John's phone access codes. She kept her phone in her purse, in her desk, during the exec meeting. John was always leaving his phone in the conference room. Phone monitoring software done. They were doing it every Thursday in her apartment. I got video of everything. Me and Sasha got along very well at the office over the years. I was the only guy who was not scared of John, but also not trying to get in her pants. The few women who worked there were cold towards Sasha. Sasha dressed professionally at work. She also wore longer skirts that hid her legs. And with her round face, I always thought Sasha was overweight. Once I saw the videos from her apartment, I knew that was completely untrue. Sasha worked out hard, several hours a week, but her workout outfits were tights with a giant oversized t-shirt. Sasha was gorgeous and very fit. Now that I knew, I recognized that Sasha's wardrobe, including her weekend outfits, large t-shirts, was designed to reduce unwanted attention. She also always wore very little makeup, which I always respected in a woman. As for John, he was a 60-second man. So, when they were intimate in a video, I only had to listen to the audio for a couple of minutes. After 4 weeks of watching everyone, I quit my job. I had built their software from the ground up and decided to create and sell an add-on, a sales module that also included predictive planning. I also knew John was going to have asked for my help to get his current projects completed on time. In addition, one of the oldest parts of the code had not been modified in several years. Somehow the source code got corrupted and there were no backups. The missed backups would look like an innocent overlook on IT's part, which it actually was. I started my new job working from home, so my work activities never changed. 2 weeks later, John was begging me to come back. I finally negotiated a contract rate double my previous hourly rate. John thought it was fine because he planned on only using me for a short while. I thought it was great because I was salaried before, and with all my overtime, my new salary with my old hours would quadruple my previous salary. I went back and rewrote the source code from memory. Of course, I couldn't exactly remember every line, so I improved a few things and I added additional features that were requested from sales. Unfortunately, the other modules did not work perfectly with the new module, so changes had to be made to them. Lucky for me, the new features made my sales module work even better. The customers loved the new features in John's software. They also loved my new software company's sales and planning software that's so easily integrated with it. After 30 days, my contract was extended indefinitely. The following week, my wife got an interesting letter in the mail from an attorney. Seems she had a great uncle die recently, and the attorneys wanted to discuss it with her. We met with them the following Tuesday. Her great uncle died a few years ago and had no family he wanted to leave his fortune to. He had created a trust to provide a monthly allowance in the amount of $4,000 per month. If the qualified relative were to have a child and name it after him or his deceased wife, the trust fund would increase to $20,000 per month. He had died some years ago, but other closer relatives had eventually disqualified themselves, so now the lawyers were speaking to her. The only caveat was that she, my wife, had to be of outstanding moral character. Her great-uncle had been married 3 times. After his first wife had passed away from cancer, the last 2 wives had cheated on him, and he had divorced them. So, no divorce for adultery would be accepted. Thus, YK's 2 sisters were not in attendance. The lawyers had us sign some paperwork, and they gave us our first check for $4,012. They said the next would be directly deposited into our joint bank account the first of every month. Katie was all smiles leaving the office. She talked all the way home how she was going to immediately quit taking birth control, and we were going to have another baby. She wanted that $20,000 per month. Once we got home, I told her we need to talk. She was so happy she didn't notice my tone. We sat at the kitchen table. I had to tell her to quit texting on her phone. I said, I quit my job a year ago and things are not going so well. I was actually pumping my earnings back into programmers to get code done. Katie, what? And you're just now telling me now? I quit to start my own software company. It is working, it is just taking me longer than expected. Katie, well, that doesn't matter now. We have lots of money and we are going to get more. She then jumped up and came around the table to give me a big kiss. Before she could, I told her, I am not going to have sex with you ever again. She saw the cold look in my eye. She turned red as a tomato and screamed, What? I said, I am not going to screw you ever again. She screamed, Who do you think you are, you little shit wipe? I held my hand up with a wait gesture. With my other hand, I opened my cell phone and pulled up her sex video. I said, Remember when your sisters received those sex tapes from the mechanic's wife? I never told you, but you and I received one as well. I deleted the copy you received so you never knew, but I kept the copy I received, just in case. I showed her the video. I finally truly knew what the words gobsmacked meant. She was standing in front of me, eyes wide open in shock, mouth hanging open, her tongue partly hanging over her lip, her arms hanging limply down her sides, and slightly hunched over as she watched the video. I told her that I had met with the mechanic's wife and pleaded with her to let us reconcile. I told her that I let you have sex with other women because it was a sexual need I really couldn't fulfill. She told me she would let it go. For a brief second, I saw a tiny bit of compassion in my wife's eyes. Then it was gone and the conniving look was back. That's past history. What do you mean you will not have sex with me? I yelled, We haven't had sex in over a year. Why do you think I want to start drilling you now? Kay looked bewildered and said, Because of the money, dear. $20,000 per month is a lot of money. Don't be mad at me. I have been really stressed lately. That is all behind us now. Please, babe, I love you. Can't we just forget about the past and look forward to the future and our new baby? No, I said. You have treated me horribly since we got married. The bitch wife was back. Listen to me, you worthless shit. We are going to have sex and make a baby or I am going to divorce you. Do you understand? I just glared at her. While jabbing her finger at my face, Kay yelled, I'm also not going to share the $4,000 per month either. I relaxed and calmly replied in my most innocent voice, fine by me. I am going to be filing for divorce due to adultery. Can you give me the phone number of the attorney we just visited? They seemed competent. I'm sure I can find a good divorce attorney with their firm. To Kay's credit, she calmed down instantly. She quickly realized I had the advantage. She returned to her seat and spoke calmly. It was only sex with her. I don't love her. I only love you. There is no need for us to give up on all the years we have been together. Well, I'm just catching up on the new rules to our relationship. You know, the lying and cheating. That was a mistake. I love you and want us back the way we were. I agree with you, and I think we should go up to our bedroom and have sex right now. Kay excitedly, I knew you loved me. No, I was lying. Did you see where I looked you straight in the eye, and you bought what I was saying? Interesting to see it from the other side, isn't it? Don't play with our love. If you ever really loved me, you would try to make this work. All right, you are right. I will work harder on our relationship going forward. I knew you loved me. You want to make it up to me in the bedroom? No, I am never going to have sex with you ever again. Kay, looking surprised, but you just said you were going to work harder on our relationship? Yes, I did. I was lying. I am seeing how this got easier for you to do. The more you do it, the easier it gets. Kay looked like she was about to cry. Crocodile tears. I'm sorry, I'm just kidding. Kay, doing her pity me look. Do you really mean it? No, not at all. I lied again. Wow, the lying makes communicating with someone who trusts you so much easier. I also have been lying all these years. My parents are billionaires, and we never have to worry about money ever again. I'll never leave you, and you'll have an unlimited allowance the rest of your life. Kay, with her bottom lip hanging out, not funny. Hey, isn't it hard to have a conversation with someone who will lie right to your face to get what they want? I said I was sorry. I won't ever lie to you again. Will you stop lying to me? I will stop lying to you. Kay paused and a tear rolled down her cheek. I love you with all my heart. Your kids love you. My sisters and parents think you are the best husband in the world. I said, I'm not so sure I believe you. They seemed pretty disrespectful the other day. No, you know that isn't true. They were just kidding. In fact, let's have a party this weekend so you can see how much everyone adores you. Well, that does sound fun. Is Mark and Ron going to be there too? Sure, the whole family. Will this Saturday afternoon be okay with you? Sure, honey, that would be great. You're not fibbing to me again, are you? No, having everyone over should be a very memorable experience. Great, a big party for my loving husband to show how much everyone loves him. She came around the table and gave me a big hug while I stayed sitting. She even kissed me on the top of my head. Lucky me. I had been sleeping in the guest room for over a year. I had also installed a deadbolt shortly after I moved in. I always kept my room locked. Around 5 a.m., I was awoken by the sound of an alarm clock going off in the house. Shortly after, someone picked the simple lock on the door and tried to get into my room. The deadbolt worked. I guess someone thought they could slip into my bed early in the morning and take advantage of my morning wood. Kay called all the relatives. Listening into the phone calls was hilarious. Kay had to bribe her sisters to come over by promising some of her $4,000 to them. Ron and Mark were easy. She promised to have a threesome with them if they came and were good. Her parents did not like it until they heard about the $20,000 a month. Dad was already scheming with my wife how after the baby was born, they could screw me out of the money. What it hurt a little was watching Kay having to convince Sally and Kevin, my own children, to be nice to me. She mentioned money and both begrudgingly agreed. Not liking their attitude, she threatened to take all their allowance, their phones, home computers, and any future car if they messed this up. They smiled and said they would be perfect children for their dad. Don't worry, it didn't hurt too bad. 7 years ago, I began thinking of them as angry stepchildren, which was pretty much how they treated me and how much authority I had over them. You would have thought I won the lottery. Everyone was so nice. I could see them all grinding their teeth with their fake smiles. Everyone was extremely nice, so I took the opportunity to be polite with everyone. My kids, I mentioned how lovely they were behaving. They didn't even seem like my own kids. Kathy, I mentioned how I had run into her boss the other day, coming out of the downtown hotel. He seemed to be in a bit of a hurry. I had intentionally run into him coming out of the hotel and talked to him for 20 minutes about programming opportunities. Kathy had to hide in the hotel lobby bathroom when she came out of the hotel elevators because she saw me talking to the man she had just screwed. And yes, he is married with 4 children and a loving wife. Kathy has been trying to attach herself to a wealthier man. Of course, they are just banging her for fun. Ron and Mark, they were hanging out near the bar, as usual. I asked them what they were doing socially, now that they were single. They discussed a few bars and clubs they went to. When they mentioned one place, I scowled. They asked why the look. I mentioned that single guys at my work said never to go there. There were two divorced guys that liked to get straight guys drunk and have their way against their will. Both guys turned white. Yes, I had bugged their new apartment. Can't neglect my hobby. I told my father-in-law that I thought I saw him and his brother downtown at a restaurant with his brother's niece. The bartender said her name was Ainsley. The look on the mother-in-law's face would have wilted steel at that point. I had a voice recording of the father-in-law, uncle, and from what was said, Ainsley is a tranny with a very big tool, and met them in a hotel room later that day. My father-in-law suddenly had a need to refresh his drink, even though it was completely full. I guess my father-in-law never discussed his dates with Ainsley with his wife, or the cost for Ainsley's time. Finally, my mother-in-law and I were alone next to the pool. No one would dare interrupt their mother talking to me. I said, "Isn't it so nice to see everyone back together again?" "Why, yes, it is. I'm glad Ron and Mark were able to stay friends and become roommates after the divorce." My mother-in-law did not answer, but by the look in her eye I knew she suspected that Ron and Mark were now more than just friends. Knowing her, she had screwed them both and probably at the same time. I think Katie and Kathy will bounce back and find someone soon. If not, the kids will eventually be gone, and they will only be in their mid-40s by then. Yes, they still have a lot of life ahead of them. I could see the pain behind her eyes. Single, public divorces due to adultery, 2 kids, and working as a waitress and a secretary. It leaves little time for romance, or finding a good guy willing to take on the headaches and financial burden of 2 kids. Plus, at least 10 more years till all the grandkids were out of her house. My kids seem to be doing better in school this year. I think Kevin is going to make a couple B's and the rest C's this year. He will be the genius amongst all your grandchildren. We will have to do something special for him to try and inspire all your grandkids to try harder at school. Mother-in-law, absent-mindedly, yes, that does sound best. Maybe a party at your house for all the grandkids. A pool party. Is the pool still working? I haven't seen the pool cover off in years. I knew they had emptied the pool years ago to cut expenses. Oh, the lake would be so much nicer. Her eyes got a little harder. Your husband seems to be doing well. His brother and him were all laughs and chuckles when I saw them having lunch together with your niece in the hotel restaurant downtown. They were having so much fun I didn't want to interrupt, and I was late getting back to the office. I took a picture when I saw them. Do you want to see? Why, yes, I would. I didn't get a chance to say hi to my brother-in-law's niece. I showed her the picture. It showed a very young, thin girl in a red dress sitting in a booth with 2 elderly gentlemen. My father-in-law was sitting across from her. His brother was sitting against the wall between the girl and my father-in-law. If you had a sharp eye, you would notice that there was a pair of red high-heeled shoes under the table, which could just be seen under the hanging tablecloth. But what was not in the shoes were 2 feet. And my father-in-law's napkin across his lap seemed very high off his lap. It took me 3 hours on Photoshop to erase the feet in the shoes and raise the napkin on his lap. It seemed only fair. I only got a voice recording from the hotel room. After almost a minute staring at the photo, she looked me in the eye and said under her breath, "She does look so pretty. I haven't seen her in so long. I wish she had more time to visit. Can you send me that photo? It is such a good picture of her." Her eyes were seething with hate now. I glanced out of the corner of my eye to see everyone was watching us. My mother-in-law was being quiet. In her entire life, she was never quiet. She spent every minute of her life telling others how to live their lives and where they screwed up for not listening to her. So, I guess Kay has told you about her little windfall? Why, yes, I think it is a wonderful opportunity for you too to get ahead in life. I think you should jump at another chance to have a baby and secure your financial future, especially with your job not doing so well. There it was, that conniving look back in her eyes. Her chance to vent some evil at me. Well, Kay and I have been having some marital problems these last few years. If we can overcome our issues, we will see. Well, you know she loves you, and we are talking about a great deal of money. I actually envisioned her salivating from her mouth as she spoke, wiping her mouth with the back of her hand, as she said the word money. Well, I hope you will encourage her to do whatever it takes to make our marriage work. Mother-in-law, with an open sneer on her face, well, don't take too long. She has other options. And there it was. I knew she couldn't resist. I said, "Other options?" and leaned further back in my chair. Well, her sisters are on record for adultery in court, so that's out of the question. You are incapable of conceiving a child, so that's out of the question. If my wife tries to divorce me, I will sue on the grounds of adultery. I have ironclad proof of her dalliances, so that's out of the question. If my wife gets pregnant by someone else, a DNA test will quickly identify the baby is the result of adultery, so that's out of the question. Of course, I was a little worried that I might have an accident with so much money involved. So, I hired an attorney and gave him all the evidence of adultery in case I get ill, so that's out of the question. But then, I'm sure some attorney will have some bright idea to try to get around the rules. Of course, you would have to help with all the expensive lawyer fees and take any risks. Of course, the minute any lawsuit arrived on my doorstep, I would immediately have my wife stop giving any money to whomever is suing me, so that's out of the question. And there is the risk. Are you willing to risk your precarious financial situation for something that will eventually fail? Something that will leave you homeless, with no retirement? I guess you could move in with one of your daughters somewhere. Not Kay, of course. After legally attacking your son-in-law, you would not be welcome here, so that's out of the question. You could move into a small apartment with your daughters and their children, but neither make enough money for rent on a 4-bedroom apartment, so that's out of the question. So, what other options were you referring to, my dear mother-in-law? My mother-in-law was actually speechless. Her mouth was actually hanging open, twitching. This was not a natural state for her. Out of my peripheral, I could see everyone at the party, including the kids, also staring with their mouths open, wondering what was going on. I was pleasantly smiling, and my mother-in-law, who now looked like a fish trying to gasp air. I thought she might be having a stroke when she finally, in a strangled voice, said, "Can you fetch me another soda, please?" I dutifully grabbed her glass and went into the kitchen from the backyard. I moved to the sink and looked out. My mother-in-law was rapidly talking to her husband and her 3 daughters. By the look on her face and the scared look on her conspirators, she was definitely not happy. She saw me looking out the kitchen window at them. She made eye contact with me and froze mid-sentence. Her husband and daughters saw her stare, and all 4 simultaneously turned to look at me. When they turned to look, my mother-in-law snapped out of it, abruptly stood up, grabbed her husband's hand, and pulled him out of the backyard to their car. She didn't even go through the house. She used the side gate. The 3 sisters proceeded to come into the house and berate me for being so uncaring to their mother, while they constantly kept asking what I had said to their mother. My mother-in-law never spoke directly to me ever again. On to the next step. The beautiful Sasha, 5 foot 8 inches tall. Sasha was an ex-wife from a husband who had cheated on her. Yes, I checked the court documents and looked up the PI she had hired. In my original plan, I didn't even consider Sasha. But after hearing her talking with an old friend, saying she actually hated John, but needed the money and hated what she had become, I decided I needed a new salesperson for my new upcoming company. Her talents were currently being underutilized. Also, any woman who worked so hard to downplay such a fantastic figure was someone I wanted to know better. I took some photos of my boss and Sasha walking arm in arm coming out of the downtown hotel. No kissing, just looking very intimate. I did not want any embarrassing photos of Sasha getting out. I sent the pictures to John's wife. I had never seen John and his wife have sex together, so I didn't know for sure what John's wife would do. When John got home, she showed him the pictures and told him in an even tone, "You know the rules. Never in the house. No children. Nothing public." John argued about it, but eventually gave in the end. She was going to be tough to crack. I would have to up the embarrassment. That Monday, John fired Sasha. I happened to be waiting outside when she was leaving. "Hi, Sasha. What's wrong?" Sasha, visibly upset. "Nothing. I just got fired." After running to catch up to her, "Sorry to hear that. Can you stop walking for a second? I have something you will want to hear." Sasha stopped walking and stared hard at me. "What do you want?" "I want to offer you a job." "Doing what?" "Sales at my software company." "I did not know you owned a software company." "Wait, how did you know I was going to be fired today?" "Very sharp lady." I looked her in the eye for a few moments. "A little birdie told me." "A little birdie?" Let's just say I am keeping a very close eye on my current competitor and do not want to miss an opportunity to pick up talent. "You still work for John. Does he know you are doing this?" "No, and I would like to keep it that way." "How much?" "Same salary, plus 20% more, but you have to pay for your own apartment." "I saw your apartment listed in the books. I don't want you to feel like there are any strings attached." "Okay, deal. When do I start?" I smiled at her and said, "You're already on the clock. I'm going to get my car and pick you up. Go around the corner, so shithead can't see you get into my car from his office. I'm sure he's watching right now." I walked away, and when I peeked back, She was looking up at John's office, giving him the one-finger salute. I picked up Sasha around the corner, and we headed back to my house and home office. On the way, I gave her an update about my marriage. When I told her I hadn't had sex with my wife in 2 years, Sasha asked me if I was joking. Not since I found out she was cheating on me. I then told Sasha that I was not going to be married to her much longer, that I only needed Kay's help to get the company from John. I told her my wife did not know that I knew about her cheating or what I was planning to do with John. So, please keep it a secret. She smiled warmly. Damn, I could melt in those brown eyes. When Sasha and I came in the front door, Katie was there to greet me. Katie growled, "Who is this?" "This is my new head of sales and marketing. She will be working with me out of the office for the time being. Any problems?" "Katie, no problems." I had to nudge Sasha to get her going. Seems head of sales and marketing was something she had not expected. I set up Sasha in a second desk next to mine. I had bought the desk 4 weeks ago. We spent the rest of the day going over my new software with Sasha. Sasha knew the old software and was amazed how much easier and faster my new software worked. She seemed very impressed with the sales module. Over the last 2 years, using cheap programming labor and tons of hours on my part, I had basically rewritten all the programs from John's company. Hey, when a guy isn't getting any, he has to put his energy into something. Being newer, it was 10 times faster, smaller, and more intuitive. All the new features that Fathead John thought would be too expensive to implement were in it. I gave Sasha 3 leads who were already using my sales software to give a demo of my main new software. After a couple of hours, she had appointments for the next week. Before Sasha went home, I told her I was going to have a conversation with Kay in the kitchen and that I wanted her to overhear. "I may need your help tonight." I left the office door completely open and I called Kay into the kitchen for a "we need to talk." "Kay, I am not going to have sex with you, but we are getting along so well." "Kay, I need you and your sisters to screw a guy." "What? My sisters and I are not some hookers you can tell who to screw. How about if I promise to give you a divorce, if you do what I ask, so you can marry someone else and have a legitimate baby? You'll let me divorce with no adultery?" "Yep." Kay, with a big smile. "Who do I have to screw?" "My boss, John. In fact, I need you and both your sisters to screw him in a hotel room tonight. Is that doable?" "We can't get there by tonight. How about tomorrow?" "No, it has to be tonight. He just dumped his girlfriend today, and knowing him, he will be looking to break in his next girlfriend quickly." "Yeah, okay, but who will watch the kids?" "Since it will be all 6, Sasha and I will." Kay started to say something about Sasha, but she trailed off when I pulled an expensive new purse out from under the table. "I have a present for you." I set the purse on the table and pointed at some of the black buttons. I told her they were cameras on each side of the purse, and she just needed to make sure there was nothing between the purse and the action. "Katie, I'm not sure I feel comfortable being taped. I have literally weeks of video of you screwing different guys. The one tape of you screwing Ron and Mark was over 2 hours. I have days of video of you screwing Cheryl in our bed, or in her bed. Don't tell me you're shy now?" "Katie," with a sad look, "you have videos of Ron, Mark and I? Of me and Cheryl?" "Yup, and many, many more. If I do this, will you destroy all the recordings?" "Absolutely. Do this for me and all of that is gone." Kay became smiles again. "Okay, let's do this." Kay called her sisters, explained what they were going to do and why. Both sisters with their kids were over in less than 20 minutes. All 3 wore the smallest little dresses I had ever seen them wear. I didn't even know Kay owned one that small. But hey, when you offer a free pass to screw, free babysitters, free drinks on the town, free hotel suite, and some new sex partner, how else are 3 bitches going to react? Once Sasha and I were alone with the 3 sisters on the front porch, away from the kids, I showed them a picture of John and said, "I want you to try and screw him to death if you can." By the smiles on their faces, I knew they were going to try their best. After the 3 left, Sasha and I got the kids fed and in front of the TV. We then went to the office to watch and make sure the 3 didn't screw this up. I started to explain to Sasha a little of what I had planned, but she waved her hand and said, "Don't bother. From what I just heard and what I know about John, they both deserve everything they are about to get." Sasha had a cute twinkle in her eye as she said it. The girls got to the lounge ahead of John. I told Kay to leave her purse on the table so I could see from the cameras. John, as per his custom, would be at the lounge having a drink after work. John did show up, but with Nancy from work. Damn it. Sasha, who swore when she first saw Nancy. Damn, that bitch didn't waste a moment, did she? Sasha took a picture of John and Nancy at the bar with her phone, so it looked like she had taken it from within the bar. Sasha flipped through her phone and called a number. "Hey Glenn, I'm at the lounge, and I just saw your girlfriend walk in with John. Are you two not dating anymore? Sasha sent the pic to Glenn. I could hear yelling on the other end. Within a few seconds, we could see Nancy answering her cell phone and looking sick. Within a few more seconds, she was crying and running out the door. Bewildered, John started to leave, but Kay yelled, "Forget her," across the bar. He, along with everyone else in the bar, looked at her, then at her two sisters at the table. John smiled and strolled over to the table. Needless to say, due to John's superior women skills, they were quickly on their way up to a suite in the hotel next door. All three sisters stripped quickly. John was frozen in front of them watching. Katie said, "Aren't you going to join us?" John moved like a madman, getting his clothes off. They pulled him onto the bed and smothered him. It was a freak show. I realized it had only been about 25 minutes of sex and I was really turned on. I looked at Sasha. She was flushed in her neck and chest. I apologized and said I could watch it later alone. Sasha looked at me, then jumped up and ran out of the room. I was afraid I had offended her. I heard her running through the house, then stopping. I was thinking of getting up to go talk with her when she came running back in and locked the office door. Sasha said, "The kids are all asleep. I need you to screw me." The guy who had not had sex in 2 years was not about to say no, especially to Sasha. I performed better than a spicy movie star. A few minutes later, we resumed watching the video. I think they really are going to screw him to death. Nice way to go. Usually John is a one-and-done kind of guy. I saw Kay give him 2 Viagra in the bar. I wonder if he was dumb enough to take both? From what we saw, I would guess yes. Sasha and I slipped down the hallway to my guest room where we showered and did it once more in the shower. I insisted that Sasha sleep with me in the guest room. Selfish me. I wanted to enjoy her company as long as I could. We set the alarm to make sure to wake up before any of the kids. We didn't want any early morning drama. In the morning before the kids woke up, I fast-forwarded through the tape till they stopped. They screwed John for over 3 hours. From what I could see during fast-forward, they just used John like a human sex doll. His smile told me he had no problem with that. Sasha thought she should leave, but I told her no, we still had a couple of hours. Sasha ended up making breakfast for all the kids. The kids were amazed. Sasha left around 9 to go home for a change of clothes. Around 11, Kay and her sisters came home exhausted, but smiling. John looked like an old man coming into his house. I gave Kay more instructions and had her call John and ask for a repeat. John said yes, but only 1 Viagra this time. This time the 3 sisters went straight to the suite and began drinking. 30 minutes later, John knocked on the door and was let in. Kay gave him 2 Viagra to take, but John only took 1. After 10 minutes, Kay walked over to John and smiled. Just then there was a knock on the door. Kathy opened the door and Ron and Mark walked in. They shook John's hand and kissed all the women. Ron and Mark then took a Viagra. As soon as they undressed, I stopped watching and went to bed. I didn't want to watch without Sasha around, but she wasn't here tonight. She had clients to visit in the morning. I would watch the tape in the morning. The next morning, Sasha was out at a client site. The sisters were still at the hotel, and the kids were off at school. I watched the tape, watching using mostly fast forward. It looked a bad European B-grade movie from the 70s. I got what I needed. I rented a downtown apartment, across the street from John's office. I paid for a maid to come by every day to clean it. I also paid her to keep it stocked with food and water. I had all 3 sisters drill John every day right after work, as long as he would let them. Seems John wanted a day of rest and skipped a day. After a few suggestions by me, the girls knew where to hang out, so he couldn't get away. To keep Katie and Kathy going, I told them that they could have 10% of the $20,000 a month when Kay was divorced and had the baby. Kay agreed with this when I pointed out that they were going to mooch off of her anyways, and paying them a set sum would limit what they would expect. Also, without them, there was no divorce. I finally sent some of the highlights of John's activities to his wife. I blacked out everyone's faces except John's. After John's wife received the highlight video, I thought my plan wasn't going to work. John's wife. She was a tall, thin woman with a very hot body. One small information about her: she is the only daughter of a local mob boss. Unlike when she was clothed, she was very exotic looking. I don't know why John was cheating on her. When John got home, she pulled him into the bedroom, made him take his clothes off, and hog-tied him on the bed. He was tied on his belly, but she had pulled both his arms back and tied them to each of his feet. He looked like he was reaching back and grabbing his feet. John's wife began playing the video in front of John on the big TV. While John apologized, John's wife pulled out a giant paddle. The sound of wood hitting John's butt was horrifying. I enjoyed it. I realized she had not said one word the entire time. She said, John, I am going out with my boyfriend. He got us last-minute tickets to the opera. I wanted to go too, but you were too busy to go with me. While I am gone, I want you to consider how you ruined our marriage. I will be divorcing you." She stared at his eyes, letting it sink in. "I will be somewhat fair in the settlement. If you fight me on anything, I will trickle out these videos to everyone you know or will ever know. Nod your head if you understand." John nodded his head. With that, she smiled and stood up. She said, "I will not be back for a week. My boyfriend is taking me on his yacht for the next week. I will swing by tomorrow morning to get some things and verify the locks have been changed. You will never come back to this house ever again. You will get nothing from this house in the divorce. I don't care how personal any item may be to you. You only get to keep your clothes here on the floor and your car. Never come back, or bad things will happen to you." She started walking towards the door, and John started yelling through the gag. At the door, she turned back and said, "Don't worry, honey. A couple of men will be around to escort you from the premises. I have to run, or I will be late. Ta, have a nice life." And she was gone from the house. It wasn't till morning two big, black-suited men showed up and untied John. They never said anything. They just stared at him through their dark sunglasses. After John got the circulation back in his hands, John then got off the bed and started towards the bathroom. Both guys, in unison, reached into their jackets and pulled out a very large handgun and pointed directly at John's head. John, now properly motivated and realizing the severity of his wife's last words, quickly put on his dirty clothes. After John was dressed, the two men put their guns back and herded John to the front door. Once in front of the house, the men stood and waited until John drove away in his car. John's wife filed that same day. John was upset, but the sisters kept him busy. In fact, John started staying at the apartment, which made it even easier for the sisters to control him. When they saw his purple butt, they all three laughed at him. Katie then screamed at him, "How dare you play with someone else without my permission?" Katie handcuffed him over the back of a love seat and spanked him till he was bawling his eyes out. John's wife froze all their accounts and assets for the pending divorce. John was soon running out of cash to pay his employees. He had lost 25% of his business to a new competitor, so his cash flow was also down. I called 3 key people at John's company and told them I heard John wasn't going to make payroll. I asked if they wanted to come work for me. None of them said yes, but I left it open-ended. Within a couple of days, John went by his house and tried to get in the garage, but it was locked up tight. I sent John a text saying, "I told you, only your clothes and car." I knew he thought his wife was behind the video that was leaked. I anonymously sent John's all-mail review, with Ron and Mark, to a big mouth salesman working for one of the competitors. Within a week, everyone who knew John's company existed had seen the video. All 3 key people called and asked if the offer was still open. I hired all 3. With John's reputation in the trash, his company having solvency issues, and his impending divorce, I managed to pick up 90% of his company's customers within the next 60 days, which happened to be when John's divorce was final. John's company closed 2 days later. With me now sole owner of my own thriving company, I had a divorce to settle. I filed for an uncontested divorce. I paid to have everything expedited. I gave Kay the house. She didn't know, but I had taken a second mortgage out on it to fund my startup. Half of our shared joint account, which was $8,000. Her car and nothing else. Kay wanted half of my company. I told her it wasn't actually worth anything on paper yet, but I could change the divorce papers to adultery. She shut up, signed the papers, and smiled. I could see her thinking, $20,000 a month? Here I come. We were divorced 60 days later. I was a free man. The day after our divorce, Kay was married to the big tool mechanic. I guess she figured she was going to be rich and also wanted to have her big meet every night. Kay spent all of the money I had given her, the $8,000 from the monthly trust fund deposit for 2 months, and $20,000 from her parents on her wedding. Not a problem. Kay was going to be rich soon and she was going to pay her parents back. He got her pregnant shortly before, during, or after the wedding. I heard from people they heard them screwing in the back of the church right before the ceremony and in the limo on the way to the airport. 3 months after the wedding, Kay, with her mom, went to see the trust fund lawyers. For 2 reasons. 1, to find out when the $20,000 a month would start. 2, the $4,000 had not been deposited for the month yet. The lawyers sadly informed them that the funds for the trust fund had been withdrawn. Another candidate had already met the requirements and would be receiving the funds. The police had to be called in, and the lawyers were demanding restitution for the damages to their conference room and offices. The audio from the confrontation was hilarious. Weeks later, Kay came to my house in a short red dress with obviously no underwear. I made her stay on the front porch. She told me she was going to reopen our divorce settlement, that she got less than she wanted. I told her I was not a piggy bank. It had been 4 months since the divorce was final. The judge's decree was final, and she had already remarried another guy. She then told me how we could get back together, if I wanted to. She then lifted her dress up over tits and pregnant belly and asked if I missed her. I smiled and pulled out my camera and took a picture of her. She even smiled and posed. I then asked her, "Won't your new husband love to see this picture with his wedding ring on your finger?" I then slammed the door shut. She screamed at me and beat on the door for a few minutes. Then she started crying and begged me not to send the photo. I told her I would not send it if she would go away and never come back. Her last words were, "I'm sorry I ruined our beautiful marriage. I wish you had been enough for me." Good enough for her? Our beautiful marriage? Someone was the captain on the ship SS Delusional, and Davy Jones had welcomed it many years ago. Eventually, I gave up my hobby completely, which included destroying all the recordings. John disappeared after his company closed. Seriously gone. The last location his phone gave was somewhere in San Francisco, in the Castro district. John's wife traded up. The guy she remarried was 5 years younger than John, but still older than her, and was a CEO of a growing company. He seemed to care for her, but definitely wanted her blue blood. They even had 3 kids together. My 2 kids graduated from high school and got dead-end jobs. No surprise, they both asked for me to hire them. I told them if they became programmers, to give me a call. Ron and Mark actually fared pretty well. Their little video with John got them notoriety and they became movie stars, if you know what I mean. Ron and Mark became friends with a successful business owner who owned a chain of stores. The guy was older and was thinking of retiring but had no kids to leave it to. Katie definitely ended up better. Cheryl divorced her husband. I had nothing to do with it. It was through a mutual agreement, and Katie and Cheryl got married. They both seemed really happy together. I felt sorry for any guy that was stupid enough to go home with those 2. Kay's parents lost their last property, their house. They had used it for collateral for Kay's marriage. When the trust fund money fell through, they sold it. They got divorced and split what they had left. My ex-father-in-law moved in with his brother. Miss Ainsley, the niece, moved in shortly afterwards. My ex-mother-in-law moved into a state-owned retirement community. She was so troublesome that they now keep her on happy pills all the time, and she mostly just mumbles and smiles. Kay stayed married for about a year. Kay lost the house, and when what little equity she got from the house dried up, the mechanic left her. Kay works as a waitress and lives in a trailer with her sick dog, raising the mechanic's kid. Kay also kept a pair of the monster jackhammers from the apartment and used them frequently. As for the persons who cheated with my wife, her sisters, and the ex-mother-in-law, did you think I was going to let them off the hook just because I promised Kay? Right after Kay lost her trust money, I sent a copy of all the videos of anyone cheating to their spouses and relatives. I used Kay's personal email account to send all the emails with the incriminating videos and voice recordings. I sent over 300 emails. I had also cloned Kay's phone. She also sent everything via text, just to be sure. Kay sent me a very angry text. "You told me you would destroy all the recordings. You promised." I texted back, "Thank you for making truthfulness no longer a necessary part of our marital relationship. It really made getting what I wanted so much easier." She never responded. As for divorces, all you have to do is find 1304, and you can find all the cheating husbands, and I had 3 of them. Most of the guys' phones I got into, the sisters all had a thing for undressing on their way to the bedroom. Their cheating was only that one time. But one, the mechanic, was the male 304. Word got around to women about his big tool, and he tried to use it often. The mechanic caused 8 men to divorce their wives. The mechanic loved to text derogatory things about the husbands to the wives. The wives never disagreed. He had to finally move to find a job and stop getting randomly beaten up. Katie, other than with her uncle and aunt, mostly messed around with single women, so she didn't directly cause any divorces. Kathy screwed many guys while I had my hobby. Most of the guys I had no clue who they were. So, of the men I did know or discovered, again subtracting Kay's overlap, Kathy caused 10 divorces with 0 reconciles. No reconciles, because the wives lost all respect for their husbands if they sank low enough to screw Kathy. Mother-in-law did a few guys, but again subtracting Kay's overlap, the mother-in-law caused only 1 divorce I know of, her sister-in-laws. As for Kay, her videos caused 13 divorces and 2 reconciles due to her cheating. These only include direct divorces. When some of the men owned up, they implicated other women who ended up getting divorced when the hurt wives confronted the other cheating wives. I think there were 4 or 5 subsequent divorces. There were at least a dozen arrests due to assaults. Thankfully, no one died that I know of. Not being nice, I like people to enjoy the consequences of their actions. And the mechanic did end up with a permanently damaged tool, thanks to Katie and Cheryl. I heard they ruptured some major blood vessels while in action. Ouch. The mechanic's nickname is now Lefty, because his meat is permanently bent in the middle and points to the left, 90 degrees left. Katie mentioned Lefty had said something disrespectful about one of Cheryl's daughters, while his was in Cheryl. Bad move. Lefty tried to press charges, but having your tool broke while inside someone is hard to describe as assault. Katie said the female detective couldn't stop giggling, and the male detective looked amazed. Katie described how Cheryl had broke his tool without using her hands. I never could get a clear picture in my head how she did it. I think my brain was blocking my little head from ever hearing about such a horrible thing. As for Lefty's ex-wife, I invited her to a coffee shop to apologize for her getting the blame in my sister-in-law's divorces. She said breaking my mother-in-law's nose was the high point of the year. She joked, "See if you can get her upset enough to slap me again. I need more therapy." I asked her if she was dating. After looking me up and down, she said, "Maybe." I told her I was spoken for, but my next-door neighbor had just gotten divorced. She waved me off like, "Not another one." Lefty's ex is a statuesque, 5 foot 10 inch blonde, and an athletic figure. A skinnier version of Cheryl. I said, he found out his wife was cheating and they amicably divorced. She sat silently, so I said, he and the ex-wife found out they were both sterile but wanted to have kids. And since you have 2 babies looking for a dad? She slightly smiled. I said, he owns his own house outright, pays no alimony, and makes over 6 figures. She had a big smile by now. He lives next door to me and hasn't gone on a single date since the divorce. Finding out his wife was cheating was a huge blow to his ego. Did I mention? He is 6'2", used to play rugby for fun? She leaned forward quickly and slapped me on my leg hard. Looking around, she tried to whisper, "Not so loud. Those 2 women behind you don't have rings." "Yes, I want a date with him." Whispering back at her for no reason, "Come by my house Saturday. I already invited him over for barbecue. Bring both kids, they can swim in my pool. Wear a high-cut one-piece. He likes women with long athletic legs." Afterwards, I swear she ran to her car so she could get home and start getting ready for Saturday, which was 3 days away. After the afternoon party on Saturday, Lefty's ex-wife and kids spent the night at his house. They never left. They invited us to their wedding 6 months later. Sasha looked so cute in a bridesmaid gown, 7 months pregnant. As for me, the business is doing very well. Sasha, before she retired, reeled in 3 whale clients, which guaranteed the solvency of our company. I quickly married Sasha. I had to. I keep getting her pregnant. I can't help it. She is always glowing. She is carrying our 4th right now. We are both trying to catch up for lost time. We moved near my parents on our own beachfront property. Warm 300+ days a year. A brutal winter day is when it gets down to 45 degrees. We live in a small house, which is fine because we spend most of our time out on the large back deck. We have 3 huge dogs who sleep with the kids every night. I taught them to bark and growl when I show them a picture of my ex-wife, just in case she ever comes sniffing around for money. Sadly, one of the vets in town has an assistant who looks very similar to my ex-wife. She has to hide until my dogs are out of the building. The first time we visited, they had cornered her in the front lobby. Before we married, I showed Sasha all of my little hobby. She knew it was a warning, but she laughed at me and told me she had nothing to worry about. The best answer in the world. And oh yeah, I know you figured it out already. The trust was in my ex-wife's uncle's name only. As the sole executor, I was allowed to close the trust. I needed my money back to start my new life. Dear listeners, please share your thoughts in the comments section below and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.